Alright, so hopefully the lighting's not too horrible in here. Look at a 67 Mercury Cougar. The story I got on, I'm not going to make a how-to or step-by-step video. I'm just going to kind of film what we're doing with this car, what I'm doing with this car. Guy had called me, a friend of a friend of a friend, asked me if I'd put an engine in his car. Went over and looked at it just to see what I was getting into, because I heard the engine was pulled out already. And I wanted to make sure it's something I wanted to do. I used to have one of these cars. I'm pretty familiar with them. I'm pretty familiar with the small block Ford. I lean more Chevy, but I had pretty much everything growing up: Mopar, Chevy, Ford. So I know quite a bit about these. My friend had a Mustang that I was constantly working on for him. And anyway, this came with a 289 in it, evidently. You can see it's real dusty. It's been sitting since 1999, I believe. That's what the inspection sticker says on the window. Anyway, it's been sitting 20 years. The guy had the body work done and had it painted, and then I guess the engine let go or something happened with the engine during that time, right after he got it painted. It's kind of old school. It's got the 14-inch centerline wheels on it. Has full-length headers with duals, and I believe it had like a Edelbrock Performer manifold and a couple little performance upgrades on the 289. I've never seen the 289. I don't know what happened to it. What you see here is what I got, plus the hood. And anyway, he bought a crate engine off of Summit. I believe it's an ATK crate engine, around 400 horsepower, I think, 351 Windsor. And I'm gonna drop it in today and see. I know I'm probably gonna need a few things for the carburetor, linkage wise, and just kind of try to piece this car together. I got most of the bolts and stuff in boxes, and so I'm just gonna try to piece everything together. I'll take you under the hood here. So this is what we got. We got full length headers. That's actually it's not a C4 or C6. It's the one before that. The original Ford automatic tranny, the Mercury Cougar or whatever. I can't remember the exact name for it. But it has a smaller flywheel, starter, and torque converter. I think a 154 tooth versus the 160 whatever on the more modern engines, modern transmissions. I don't know. There's some weird sheet metal stuff going on right there. He's got the starter, the alternator, the power steering pump all down here. Coil. So that's kind of what I'm working with. Transmission was never taken out. I think the linkage is still hooked up on it. This is a crate engine. It's 351 Windsor with the AFR aluminum heads. It's all complete except for the carb. Sugar's in it. Looks like a pretty decent build on it. And then this is kind of like where all the boxes and stuff. You can see kind of all the bolts and stuff in there. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with. There's a fan, an old cheap flex fan. Probably eventually get rid of that, get a real fan, and the shroud and all that stuff. It's got a fuel pump down there, an older one. He's actually getting a newer Holly fuel pump for it. ATK recommends that for the crate engines. So we're kind of getting some parts together for that. My goal today is just to get this engine set in there, bolted down, and kind of just get as much bolted in as I can, because I'm going to have to move it out. Obviously, I work on mostly new cars, so that's pretty much all I do is work on new cars, besides my own personal fleet of Hoopties that are older. But I work on mostly new cars here, so this is kind of like a detour from what I normally do. And like I said, it's fun to do it. I don't actually like working on. People would think someone that's been in as long as I have, and my age and stuff, that I would like working on old cars. I prefer working on the newer cars, actually. I don't have to deal with all the rust and the broken bolts and trying to find parts and all that stuff. I mean, I know the parts is a problem with newer cars too, but not to the level of these older cars. So anyway, I prefer to work on the newer cars, but I don't mind, here and there working on this. I like working on my own hot rod. I have an 81 Z28. My son's got an IROC, and we mess around with that kind of stuff. But anyway, this is something I normally do, and we're just going to have some fun with it and get it running for him. And it's got a black interior on it. Get it running for him. It doesn't have any brakes at all. It's been sitting 20 years. They go right to the floor. So we're going to have to work that out. Probably a master. I know it needs a master cylinder, possibly more. I don't know. It's got front disc on it, I believe, and rear drum. It does have power brakes, so that's kind of nice that it has that. So we'll have to figure out why there's no brake. It's no brakes at all. Go straight to the floor. So anyway, and then I did put a new gas tank in. I'm waiting to get a new fuel sending unit. See if I can find it here. This is what came out of the gas tank, and you can see heavy rust. It had probably 5 or 6 gallons in it. You can see all the rust here, heavy rust. And anyway, it probably had 5 or 6 gallons in it, and when I went to remove the gas tank, I drained it, and it was incredible amount of rust in the bottom of the tank. I'll go out. The tank's out behind the shop. I'll go out and show you that. But that's something to think about if you get an old car like this and it's been sitting for a long time. Just check the gas tank before you try to fire it up. The gas will just, it's just so much rust and stuff in there. If I would have fired this car up with that gas tank, it may have ran about 10 minutes before everything was clogged. It was just heavy rust. So I'll bring that in and show you that. I don't keep the gas tanks in here because I got a gas furnace. It's kind of a dangerous combination. So anyway, I'll take some pictures of that or show you that, and then we're just going to drop this in. The motor mount, whoever took the motor out actually took the motor mounts out and left them in the car. So I got to pull those out, and then I think I'm going to loosen the collector on the header so I can move those around a little bit easier. And I need to find the starter bolts. I haven't found the starter bolts yet. But it's just little stuff like that. But I think what I'm going to do is just take those old motor mounts out first and loosen the header collectors, get it up in the air a little bit so I can crawl into there when I got the engine in and line up the torque converter. And then just try to get it bolted in as much as I can today and see where we're at with it and what we need. So anyway, that's just an introduction to this Cougar. And probably not going to make a series or anything. I'm just going to make one video on it. And once we get it fired up and running, I'll show that, and then that's basically it. But I just thought it was kind of neat. We don't see these cars too much anymore, unless you go to a car show or something. So it's kind of neat to see these cars. And if you don't know about the Cougar, they have hideaway headlights in them. It's vacuum operated. I believe it's off the engine, so the engine has to be running for these lights to come up. And then the rear has sequential tail lights like some of the Mustangs have. Got black interior in it, and the paint I guess is chameleon or fuchsia. There's the tail lights, and those are sequential. When you turn it on, it'll light this one, this one, this one, this one. It's kind of a neat car. It's basically they're based off the Mustang. I think the suspension and everything is almost exactly like any kind of Mustang from this era, so it's kind of easy to get parts for them in general, just because it's based off the Mustang. So I personally think these years, 67 to 68 is the best looking year. I know some guys like the 70 and the Eliminator and all that. And this one came with a 289. They also put a 390 in on this year, which that had to be a pretty tight fit. These shock towers, if you know Mustangs and stuff, these shock towers here really kind of get in the way when you're trying to do headers and all that stuff, and spark plugs and all that good stuff. So it's kind of a little bit of a pain on these models. But anyway, I will maybe get some shots of the tank, and then we're just going to drop this engine today and go from there. All right, we're going to try to slide this in here slowly. Don't like the way the engine's turned. Got the transmission on jacked up a little bit. Going a little bit. Got the headers a little bit loose. I didn't take them all the way out or anything, because I don't know what the deal is with the headers. I don't know what brand they are, or if they come in and out with the engine. Well, they don't come out with the engine, but if you can get them in and out easily. I'm almost right over the motor mount right now. I think I'm on something over here. These Fords have those plates in between the engine and the transmission that goes on the engine sides. Those like to get hung up sometimes. That's what I'm on a little bit. And I'm hitting this header over here. Should be clear there. Kind of wish I would have took the engine out. I don't really like doing jobs if someone starts. It'd be much easier if I would have took this engine out, then I would have all the parts and all the bolts, and we know where everything's at. It just makes everything a little bit easier. But the guy that bought the car, his uncle took the engine out like 20 years ago. And just never got it, the new one, or never got one installed. So anyway, it's almost in. I'm gonna have to move the headers a little bit, and I'll catch back up once I get it all the way bolted in or set down. All right, so I got the engine in, got it set in. You can see I got the motor mounts in, and got it all lined up on the transmission back here, and it's all bolted. It's all bolted in. On these Fords, the torque converter, you want to orient your flywheel and your torque converter at about the same, usually around 7 o'clock. That's where the starter hole's at. And that's how you line up your torque converter and your starter. You get the engine in there and get it close to the transmission. And then you orient the flywheel and the torque converter together. And then kind of put them together after that. It's a little bit more challenging than like a Chevy that has open transmission tunnel, or underneath where it's open. That wasn't that big of a deal on this one, though. It went pretty good. The only thing I'm worried about right now, these headers are old, probably, you know, obviously over 20 years old, and they're not all the way bolted up against the engine yet, but you can see right there, it's right up against the power steering hose, and I'm not sure if I can reroute that easily, so that's going to be a concern. The Windsors are about a ½ inch on each side wider, and I think about 1 inch taller. So the engine's going to be, it's not a huge difference, but the 289 is a little bit more compact, and I don't know how he had that before, but I'm definitely concerned about that situation there. And just in general, the headers, probably going to have to reduce the exhaust a little bit on it if we use these headers. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to with that power steering wheel. So that's just some of the stuff you run into when you're doing an engine swap like this. You know, and I don't have an engine to go off of and see, and you even have the bolts. Like I said, all the bolts are there, just in boxes. So I'm kind of just going off memory and knowledge to put this thing together. So I think right now I'm just going to loosen the headers from the collector on the bottom, and see if I can manipulate this header to line up or clear that power steering hose, and maybe hook the other side up, and then kind of start going from there. I don't want to put too much stuff on it if I have to jack the engine way up to take these headers out. So I'm not going to go super far on it right now until I know for sure if I can use these headers or not. I'm sure they've changed styles and made them better over the years, or I'd hope so. So I don't know. We have to see what's out there if I can't get these to work, and then it's just going to stall everything. So I have to order them and all that. So anyway, that's where we're at now on it, and go from there. I guess I'll let you know what happens with the headers on it. All right, so we're out by this tank. You can look. This tank actually looks like it's been replaced recently, but anyway, gotta get you down in there. Try to get you down in there. You can see all that rust down in there. And I don't know if, hopefully you can see. I mean, it's just filled with rust. There's probably handfuls of rust at the bottom that I can see. So if you got a car that's been sitting around a long time, definitely check your fuel tank before you try to start it. There's actually rust right there just from falling out. This tank was nice because it actually had a drain plug on it. Alright, so I got the engine in, got the headers on, and was able to reroute that hose. I took it completely off and run it underneath the engine and back up. It's long enough to do that. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be like that or if someone at some point changed the line, but it was right up against the header right here before. Now it's away from it, so that should be okay. And then these brackets are this was a 289 302, and you can see here the brackets don't reach where they're supposed to reach on the water pump, so we got to order brackets for that. Evidently there's no aftermarket for that. You have to get used, and supposedly 69, I guess 69 Bronco and Cougar had the longer brackets. Same with the alternator. I don't have the bracket here, but it doesn't reach over. It goes to about right here. It's about an inch short on both sides, so we're gonna have to get that. And then we had the accelerator coming up here, and there's supposed to be a rod that goes to the carburetor. And I don't know where that's at. I looked all over for it. We can't find it, so we're going to have to find that. If anyone knows where to get that at, let me know in the comment section. So the transmission's hooked up, the torque converter, starter's in now. So I'm pretty much down to putting the carburetor on. I think he got a new coil for it. I'll have to rewire this distributor. I don't know. They didn't give me instructions on it. It looks like a ground, power, maybe a tack. I'm not sure. I have to look it up. And then just little stuff like the thermostat housing and all the stuff for the manifold, for the power booster, brake booster, all that. And then the front end stuff on this. We got to get the right brackets, radiator, get that arm for the accelerator pedal, and then this thing might be close. The other thing, I don't know if you guys know, this has got the Cruise-O-Matic Mercury transmission in it, and there's no bracket to hold this dipstick tube for the transmission. So if you would yank that real hard, you just pull it right out of the transmission. I didn't see anything in the parts, so I don't know if there's missing a bracket or what's supposed to go with that. If anybody knows, let me know about that too. It's a 67 Cougar with the Windsor swap. I don't think that would matter too much. The 351. I don't think that would matter that much. So I'm almost to the point where I'm going to have to pull it back out. I got a bunch of cars lined up behind this, and I can't leave it in here while I'm working on other cars. I'm way behind with the holidays, and then I had the Rona back in December, so I'm probably 3 to 4 weeks behind right now. So I'm just doing what I can on this, and then I'm going to have to pull it out. It doesn't have any brakes at all. He's supposed to get me a master cylinder and a fuel sending unit. The fuel sending unit, if I get that, I can finish putting the fuel tank in and finish that up. The master cylinder, definitely bad. It was dry and rusted. I don't know what else the brakes need, but I definitely know it needs a master cylinder, so I have to put that on and then see what else is going on with the brakes. It's not good. That's the only bad thing about. It's nice having a car in the garage and everything, but if you don't drive them, stuff like that just goes bad. The brake fluid attracts a lot of condensation and starts rusting things out. So I said I wasn't going to make a series on this, but I don't know when I'm going to get back to the parts on this. So I'll probably just end this video out and then upload a video when we get it running and see how this crate engine sounds and go from there. That'll probably be pretty much it. Like I said, it's not like a step-by-step video or anything. So anyway, if anybody knows about that dipstick tube or where to get that rod for the throttle, let me know. And I guess that's about it. This thing, even though it's close, it seems far away still because waiting for parts. And I'm sure there'll be something else come up after that I forget or didn't see, and then I have to order something else. So I don't know. That's the only bad thing, like I said before, about taking on a project like this, that the engine was pulled out already. I'd much rather have the engine still in here. It might take me a couple hours to pull it out, but then I know where everything's at, got all the parts, all the bolts, I've been searching for bolts. Spent a lot of time just sorting all that stuff out. So it is what it is, but in the future, I don't know if I would take on too many of these, just because it's quicker for me to bust out newer cars, make the money and move on. With this, it's just kind of with waiting for the parts and all that. I think it's going to linger here for at least another week or two. So anyway, I'll keep you updated on it when we get it running. Thanks for watching. As always, God bless.